y'all, and welcome to the Healthy by Heather Brown podcast, where I encourage you in healthy mind, body, and spirit through my Sunday reset. Let's get into it. Hello, girl gang, and welcome back to an episode of Healthy by Heather Brown. I'm really excited today because I get to do a podcast swap with a new friend of mine who is just a hop, skip, and a jump away over in Nashville, Tennessee area from Birmingham. I'm getting to welcome Rachel today, who is a Harvard business grad, a CEO and mom of two littles on a mission to make holistic health solutions smarter. So we are going to be talking about all the nerdy fun stuff about health. We might even get into some circadian rhythms. We have all the good things to deep dive into with her. So without further ado, Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So you were telling me that you live in Nashville. I see you have two littles. How old are your kiddos?
I have one that is 4.5 and one that is 18 months.
Oh, wow. You're in the thick of it.
Yes.
Really in the thick of it. Yes.
Very much
I love that.
so.
Oh my gosh. Well, my oldest is 8. And then my second one is 5. And I really feel like I'm having this super weird, exodus of the, I guess, preschool era, and it's very bittersweet. But I also am like, wow, I'm about to drop off 2 kids at the same school at the same time and pick up from the same place. What is this life I'm about to have?
Feels like you probably have some more time on your hands and less people needing you, which is probably good and bad at the same time.
Exactly. Everything's always bittersweet, I feel like, when you're ending an era like that. So anyway, all that to say, Rachel, tell everybody a little bit about your business and tell them, I guess, what made you wake up to holistic care? Because I know that there's a lot of us starting to dabble in it, especially after 2020. So I always think it's so interesting to hear how people got started on that path.
Yeah, of course. Well, I really started when I was really young. So I grew up in a household where holistic health was really part of the everyday life, where we were doing nutrition, supplementation to really focus on preventative care, but also if we got sick, what could we do outside of the traditional medical system? And fast forward to early in my career, I was working in finance, working 100-hour weeks, and my body just broke down. I was dealing with stress and burnout and fatigue, and the medical system had failed me many, many times before. And so I went back to the holistic health roots to really say, all right, what can I do across my nutrition, my lifestyle? Can I sleep more? Can I make changes around how I'm moving? And also on the supplementation side. And when I walked into a supplementation aisle and there was just so much stuff, right? How do you know what you need? How do you know what's actually going to work for you based on your biology? And how do you even know what's working? And I had this light bulb moment where I was seeing all of this innovation around technology and data science in health services. So dealing with chronic care or diseases in my finance job. And I said, why can't we apply this better approach, smarter approach to health to the holistic health system to help people figure out what they should be doing, what they need from a supplementation perspective, and if it's really working. And that's really where the root of routine came from. And really the focus, the mission is to help women and consumers in general make smarter, better decisions around their health and really have access to these solutions that are more science-backed and data-driven. And from a product perspective, we sell 3 main categories of products today. Are functional drink mixes for sleep, stress, and focus. So these are powder supplements that really make any drink functional. I love the taste of them. I use them as mocktails because I'm a low or no alcohol girl. For our stress, our sleep, I take right before bed. And focus is this amazing afternoon slump, or helps you get rid of this afternoon slump that I always have for 2 to 3 o'clock. Especially as a mom, especially as a working mom. And then we have our Smart Multivitamin, which is custom dosed to you based on your biology. And we have at-home lab tests, including one of my favorite, which is our cortisol test, which helps you understand where your cortisol levels are. Because fun fact, your cortisol can be too high, but it can also be too low. And you can have a lot of different symptoms based on where your levels are at different points during the day.
Yeah. Well, that is so incredible. And I think that you're touching on so many things that moms are feeling as we're getting inundated, like you said, in the vitamin aisle. And I mean, honestly, even with influencers talking about they're taking their athletic greens and they're taking this and they're taking that. Yeah. And it's kind of like, how do you cut through the noise and know what you actually need? So I think that that's really amazing that you're offering that service. And also, it's almost like how crazy that our supplement game has gotten to that point in the US. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, sometimes when Eric and I are traveling abroad and I see their grocery stores and how simple it is, like there's only a couple of options for the bread you're going to get, and it's mostly fruits and veggies. And it's like the same problem that we have in our food system of being so overwhelmed by all these choices that a lot of times are not made with the highest quality ingredients and, leaving us lackluster. It's now becoming the same thing in our supplement space.
Exactly. And one of the things that we did with our newest line, our functional drink mixes, is I'm a mom. We have a lot of parents on the team. We wanted to create something that was easy to take on the go, easy to drink whenever you had time with water, or make something that's special for you at the end of the night, but something that actually works. And most people are feeling benefits with whatever product they're taking within 20 minutes. So if you're having trouble sleeping, you take the product, you're falling asleep faster. If you're dealing with high cortisol levels or you're really stressed, which like what mom isn't really stressed at the end of the day? So I put my kids to bed, and instead of grabbing that glass of wine, I make a little mocktail with my stress drink. It's orange flavored, sometimes put lime and lemon in it, and I can feel more relaxed and more calm in like 20 minutes. And same with focus too, is if I'm in the middle of a busy work day or I need to like get some deep thinking done, having that like extra brain power, I call it nature's Adderall. Don't know if you can say that in reels, but that's how I feel. And it really works fast. So you want something that works for you, and especially for moms who are working super hard, whether you're working at home or away from the home and at home.
Yeah. So you've referenced several times cortisol, and I feel like that's become such a trendy buzz and wellness word that we're hearing everybody where. I'm seeing it on TikTok, on Reels and all the things. And so I mentioned it the other day, and somebody was like, is that a hormone? Like, what is this cortisol thing? So do you mind kind of just breaking it down in everyday layman's terms? What is cortisol and why is it a problem? And maybe like, what are some ways that we can address it from a holistic perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So cortisol is a hormone, and it's actually one of our major hormones. So if you think about hormones in terms of a pyramid, you have fertility hormones are more at the top, and cortisol, along with insulin and oxytocin, are at the bottom. So if your cortisol is imbalanced, it actually impacts a huge number of processes throughout your body. And some of the signs of cortisol imbalance, and like I said earlier, your cortisol can be too high or too low. It can be everything from being extra irritable or moodiness, having high stress, but it can also be gut issues. It can be skin problems, belly fat, trouble losing weight. This was a huge problem for me postpartum, actually, as I was doing all the right things, the workouts, the eating well, but my cortisol was super imbalanced. So it was really hard for me to drop those extra pounds. We can talk about that later. But it can show up in a lot of different ways. And imbalanced cortisol also has been linked to depression and anxiety. So there's all of these things, whether it's mood or physical appearance, that can stem from your imbalanced hormones. And then you also asked some ways and some simple things that you can do to improve it. So one of the things that I like to do, or I kind of follow this 6-step plan, and I really look at everything from nutrition to lifestyle to supplementation. I take stress as a support for the healthy cortisol. But the simple thing, simple free, there's something called cyclical breathing, which is 2 inhales and 1 long exhale. That's been shown if you do 3 to 5 times, or you do it over 5 minutes, that can support your body in high stress times. It can support cortisol. Free, super easy to do.
Will you lead us through maybe even like 3 of those types of breaths so that the mamas, if they're driving or if they're running or whatever they're doing, they can just do it? Because I feel like sometimes when you actually do it, it like processes differently in your brain. Do you mind? Yep. And I'll do it with you. Can we do it together?
Happy to. Yep.
Okay.
So it's 2. I do a long inhale and then a top up and then 1 long exhale. So we'll start. And that's 3. And you can, if you did it with us, you can probably feel like your body calming a little bit. It's been shown in Stanford University research to really help calm the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that part of your nervous system that helps the rest and digest.
That's amazing. And if you couldn't hear us in our microphones, because it was helpful for me because I could see Rachel as she was doing it, she literally took a deep, and I'm going to link back to the whole breath podcast that we did with an expert on breathing and why it's so important. But you literally want to think instead of I think the word he used was, instead of thinking like deep and you want to bring your shoulders up and take this massive breath, think more like a slow breath to really expand through her rib cage. So she did slow breath, and then when she felt like her lungs were almost at capacity, she did a quick like another quick breath in through her nostrils, and then she did that deeper exhale, which y'all maybe heard. But that was really awesome. Thank you for taking us through that. And
Yeah.
Mama, when you get stressed with your babies, that's such a good thing to be able to say, hey, Mama's going to take a quick time out, and you can go do that in the bathroom and come back.
Yeah, it's super helpful during those times of your toddler screaming, your little one screaming, and you just need a second. Take like 5 seconds and do it. A couple of other things, key things around cortisol in buckets. So there's movement, there's nutrition, and there's lifestyle. On the movement side, when and how and where you exercise really matters for cortisol balance. So to the point on when, if you exercise late at night, that can create increased cortisol levels, which makes it harder to sleep and harder for your body's natural biological rhythm to start producing that melatonin, which gets you into this really bad cycle. Poor sleep, your cortisol increases, and then high cortisol makes it harder to sleep. And so exercising earlier in the day, whether it's in the morning or the afternoon, can really help with those levels, especially for people if they have high cortisol at night.
That's
on
good.
the what, a lot of people grew up, me included, hearing like high intensity cardio. That's the way to lose weight. That's what you need to do when you go work out. Go for the runs, go to the intense classes. It turns out that high intensity cardio can actually be really detrimental to your cortisol levels if they're imbalanced, especially for women as they get older. And switching to strength training 3 or 4 days a week for me, and I do it about 30 minutes, so it's not a super long workout. So I strength train, I walk a lot more, and I only do like 1 day of higher intensity cardio, and that has made a massive difference in my weight loss and my body comp without really stressing my body.
Oh, that's amazing. And I will say that I just listened to an entire podcast episode about when women are getting in like that 35 years old plus category, how you cannot underestimate the power of a walk. And especially even thinking about staying actually more so in like a zone 2 cardio. And it was fascinating. I'll have to link that podcast episode, but I took so much out of it. And I have been really trying to change how I'm working out, especially around my cycle as well.
Yeah. Exactly. And the last point is really where, which I didn't realize until I started diving deeper into this. If you work out outside, there's a lot of research around how that really helps impact your stress levels, improve your stress levels and your cortisol more than if you're working out inside, because of the natural light and just being out in nature is a very, very helpful for your overall lifestyle and cortisol levels. And that goes into the lifestyle habits too. It's like how can you get more natural light? How can you go look at the sunset more? So it helps bring you down, helps create that melatonin release, which also supports cortisol. How can you drink more water and less caffeine? So hydration, those are some helpful tips there. And then the nutrition side. So one of the other major things around cortisol is that if you're eating a lot of processed foods, things that are high fat, high carb, processed, those things can really spike blood sugar. And blood sugar spikes that are constant up and down can create extra cortisol and inflammation in the body, versus the whole foods, more lean proteins of the world really help support more stable blood sugar, which allows you to have more stable cortisol levels.
Now, you mentioned a little, and I even kind of teased this a little bit in our intro about circadian rhythms. Do you mind telling people number one, what does that mean? What is the circadian rhythm? Number two, how do you practically make it happen when you've got young babies to get out and try to see the sunset? Can you talk a little bit more through the basics of that?
So circadian rhythm, simply, our bodies have a 24-hour to 28-day biological clock, depending on who you're talking to. Women, it's the biological clock, but we have the 24-hour as well. There are certain things that your body is supposed to be doing at certain times in the day. We live in a world of constant disruptions to our stress levels, to that circadian health, everything from getting on your phone first thing in the morning, getting that light and that like constant dopamine hits. And say you're on social media and you see something that really upsets you. You see like a news cycle that's like very upsetting. You're spiking yourself earlier than what historically humans would ever see. And then into like fluorescent lighting, typically, if you look back at 100 years ago, people weren't having these like overhead fluorescent lights in the middle of the night. They were looking at fires. They were reading. There was candlelight. There was less just like fake stuff. And so the body was able to wake up more naturally and then fall asleep more naturally. In terms of how I actually practice this, and I try to do it the best that I can. But like you said, I'm a mom of two. I also have a startup. I'm a very busy human, and sometimes it's not always possible. A couple of things I do is I do take my dog out to use the bathroom in the morning, and I try to stay out there for like 30 seconds to a minute longer and just look at the sun. Even if it's raining, I just try to get that morning light. I'm also someone who tries to wait like a little bit to have my coffee. I'm not the wait 2 hours to have caffeine, but I also stop caffeine by 9 a.m. because caffeine has a half-life. I think it's of up to like 10 hours. And so if you're drinking it at noon, it's like 7 to 10 hours, depending on the research that you look at.
Dang.
So you still have caffeine in your body as you're going to sleep. And I'm, as a human, like my genetics, I'm a slow caffeine metabolizer. And so that also plays a role in when I just like stop the caffeine. And then hydration is really important. And then the most recent thing that I've been doing is a bedtime routine where I put my phone down an hour before I go to bed. I do watch a little TV, but I stop that about like 45 minutes to like 30 minutes before I go to sleep. And I'm just like reading at the end of the night. So I have no blue light on, no blue light. I'm not like getting that dopamine hit or getting those stressors from scrolling on my phone, and that helps me fall asleep a little bit better. I'm a terrible sleeper generally. The sleep product really helps me fall asleep and stay asleep, but paying attention to that nighttime routine is really important.
Yeah, those are really good tangible tips. If you are loving everything you're hearing here in this episode about mind, body, and spirit health, how they're all interconnected, my tested and proven Sunday reset method, and leaving a healthy legacy for your kids, you need to join the Healthy by Heather Brown membership. It's a community of like-minded women seeking the Lord and better health with weekly resources where I get to personally cheer you on. You get 7 days free to test it out. Link to join in the show notes or go to healthybyheatherbrown.com. One thing that you said, and now I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this. So I recently, I guess last summer, I started trying to do this. I feel like you just said, I go outside in the morning and try to look at the sun. And people are gonna be like, whoa, wait. Like, what do you mean you're looking at the sun? I thought you're always wearing sunglasses. Okay. So what I heard last summer, and I would love to hear your take on this, is that you actually should try not to wear sunglasses as much outside because your brain, and this is why I'm like, I feel real rusty on the details of the study that I read, but it's something about the way that your brain perceives the sunlight that you're getting, and then it knows how much, I think it's melanin to make for your skin to then help protect you from the sunlight if your eyes can receive full information from the sun. So I've been trying to start wearing hats more instead of sunglasses, and also, like you're saying, seeing the early sun when I first get up by opening up blinds if I can't get outside immediately because of my babies or whatever. And then also after dinner, walking outside and seeing the sunset. So will you expound a little bit on, have you seen any research about that with sunglasses or looking at the sun?
I haven't seen a ton of research, and I haven't dove into the sunglasses or the no sunscreen. I have been seeing some things around, even people are saying don't wear sunscreen because it helps protect your skin more. I don't know the answer to that or not, or what the research is saying. I do know with the morning sunlight, there is research around the best approach is to go outside and get the sun in your eyes without anything on. So no hats, no sunglasses, no windows, all of that. And at the same time, we're busy humans, and sometimes that doesn't always work. And so what is the next best thing is really how I approach it. So maybe it's like, I'm already wearing sunglasses, I'm outside, like that's a thing. Or I can't go outside, I'm going to open my blinds or try to go on my porch and get some sunlight that way, just to at least attempt it without it having to be super strict. Because one of the things that you see, especially for moms on social, is there's all of these people expounding all of these protocols and all of these really strict things. And if you think about it, it's like, I'm going to be spending my entire day doing health optimizations. And I have kids, and there's simply no way that that's going to happen. So the way I approach that is I see what's going on, I see the research, and then I say, all right, is this actually going to fit into my life? And then how can it fit into my life in a simpler, faster, easier way?
Totally. And I'm like, let me just say, same girl, like for sure, same. How can I take this little bit that I learned and start to implement it or implement some part of it? And if I don't do it every day, but hey, I did it twice this week, it's a start. And you're just habit stacking, like we always talk about here on the podcast. One thing that I'm taking us way back to the beginning of the podcast now was something that you mentioned. You mentioned about how you were a low or no alcohol girl. And I have had a prior guest, which I can also link back to this episode, Megan Davis. She's one of my very best friends. She is one of the head trainers at Burn Boot Camp here in Homewood, Alabama. And she talked about just the effects that alcohol can have on your body. And then most recently, I was talking with my husband about how an article just came out saying that our generation is the first generation where alcohol sales are actually going down, which I found very interesting. So and a lot of it they're saying is because I'm sure it's always multifactorial why those stats are happening. But one reason that they think that those stats are happening is because our generation is starting to be more aware of not only the side effects now, but what the effects can be long term. Can you speak a little bit into those side effects and also why you decided to give it up or do it very minimally?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting that this is happening. And then you look at Gen Z too, and the alcohol sales are getting even lower for them. I think a couple of things. I think being able to see what's happening to your data is a really big piece of this. This is not something that anyone has been able to do before, but now you see like 50% of people 18 plus have a wearable, like they have an Apple Watch or they have an Oura Ring or they have a Fitbit, and they can see what their sleep looks like when they have alcohol versus what it looks like when they don't have alcohol. They can see what their performance, their HRV, their individual, like their heart rate metrics on alcohol versus non-alcohol. And it's so clear that alcohol is terrible for your sleep. It's terrible for your HRV, which is heart rate variability. It's a metric of your body's stress, and most wearables have it. But you can just see that it really does impact your wearables. So if you think you're like, all right, I'm going to drink, and then you look at what your deep sleep is, and you're like, wow, that really impacted me versus when I didn't. It's so hard to take that out of context once you know it. It's like, what, you're never not going to know that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons for the trend. The other thing that is on like a more personal note, when I was in my late 20s, I started getting what I think is referred to as anxiety. It's like a side word, but the biological things happening in my body every time I drank was just giving me this intense anxiety the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't happen to everybody, but it started happening to me more in my late 20s, to where I was like, I don't like this. Can we do something else? And so over time, between those two metrics, I've just decreased the amount of alcohol that I drink, mostly because it just makes me feel terrible. I can really feel a difference. I'm in my 30s, so I can feel a difference between if I have a glass of wine or if I don't. And one of the reasons I love these new products is because I still like want to feel something. Like I'd like to like have that relaxation moment, or that like, all right, I'm going to go to sleep moment. And so I love that these products, we used a blend of adaptogens such that they would really make you feel something, like give you a benefit without the negative effects of alcohol, which is just something I was really craving being a low or no alcohol person.
Totally. And I know that this is so basic, especially for you, but will you explain what aptogens are for those listeners who don't know?
Yeah. An adaptogen is, like, I'm sure you've heard of ashwagandha or rhodiola. They're herbal compounds that help bring your body back into balance faster. They're not prescription medication. They're not any type of something that's going to be habit forming, but they're this really great naturally occurring substance that especially when you put a lot of them together, they create really amazing benefits for stress, for sleep, for focus, and even into gut health and healthy cortisol levels, which can impact, I know we talked about that, but everything from weight loss to skin health.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about that journey. And I honestly have been just so touched by, I've gotten several direct messages since that first episode of women saying that they've lessened their alcohol since that. So I think it's something that is just important to keep, like you said, and you may listen to this and be like, hey, there is no way I'm ever going to do that. That's fine. But maybe you're just thinking, but maybe I could just have like a drink on the weekend now, or maybe I could just think about ways to, tailor it to what works for you and your lifestyle and journey right now.
And that's how my journey really went. It's like I was drinking multiple drinks a night, and then I stopped drinking. Then I was drinking one a night, and then I was only having it a couple times a week. And then it was just like on the weekends. And now it's maybe once a month type of situation. So it's definitely been like a tailoring down, which isn't right for everyone. People have different experiences with alcohol, and sometimes it changes. But for me, that's really what helped, and kind of focusing on it that way.
Totally. And I will say, doing something like, I've talked a lot about how I've done the Whole30 in the past, or doing like a 30-day or a 60-day sugar detox. For me, that really does help, because it's almost like we talk about all the time, more about breaking the habit than it is even that I was like, I need the alcohol. It was like, well, no, I just was in the habit of like, my husband would come home, we'd grill out outside, and we both have a drink to unwind from the day. But then once we both decided we're going to do Whole30 together many, many years ago, or we're going to do this up until this vacation, it almost just took away the routine. And then we got in a new routine of we're going to, crack open a sparkling water and add some lime. And then you still get that little satisfaction of, oh, I cracked a can open and I got my LaCroix, or whatever it is that you enjoy. I just think that there is something there about those replacement mechanisms in your brain and retraining.
Exactly.
Anyway, I know we're quickly running out of time, so I wanted to hear from you too. You mentioned early on about your journey with dropping the extra pounds postpartum. And a lot of the women that listen to this podcast are either, well, actually, I had a podcast guest on, and she used the terminology. She's actually my pelvic floor therapist. She used the term, you were always postpartum. And I thought that is just groundbreaking, truly. But a lot of the listeners that I have are either postpartum, because you're always postpartum, or they're newly postpartum. So what did your journey look like postpartum, and how did cortisol play into it? I'd love to just kind of hear that full picture if you have time to share.
Yeah, happy to. And I talk a lot about this as well on my Instagram. So if anyone's interested in diving deeper into my story, you can check it out there. So I've had 2 babies, as I mentioned. My first, I didn't gain a ton. So I didn't have that much weight to lose the first time. So I didn't really do much differently. I just kind of did what I had always done, and whether or not it worked. But with my second, I ended up gaining a lot more, which I think is pretty common. People just like gain a lot more weight with their second.
Same.
And so
yes.
when I went to go into my postpartum weight loss journey, I had like 50 plus pounds to lose. And I was sitting there, I'm like, how am I going to do this? Because this is a lot. This isn't like 15 pounds that I can just like say whatever, I'll get it off when I get it off. I actually have to think about how I'm going to do this. And I need to commit to showing up every day and realizing that it's not going to come off super fast. And I gave myself a goal of having it off by the first year. And I actually ended up getting it all off plus within 7 months. So
my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So it worked. So my approach worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. But what I did, the number one thing I did that I think made the biggest difference is a mindset shift from how I would think about weight before I had babies, which is like, all right, I'm going to do like a crash diet and I'll lose 5 pounds, or I'm going to do this for like 2 weeks or a month and that'll be fine. 50 pounds is a huge number. Like, I'm not doing that in 2 weeks. And so I had this mindset where I'm like, all right, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the workouts that I can. I also had C-sections, and so that's even harder coming back. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the workouts that I can do every day. And I'm going to try to eat healthier every day, but I'm not going to force myself to not eat a certain food group, or I'm not going to try to like do this crash diet, because this is something I'm going to have to do for at least a year, if not more. So I like had that shift at the beginning, and that changed everything.
Wow.
Like, for that shift. And then from a like tactical perspective, I started out, I was working out 3 to 4 days a week. I was doing cardio. I was doing strength training, which is really important with fat loss. And then I was eating generally well, like 80-20, let's call it. And I was walking, I was getting my steps in, but the weight like really wasn't coming off. And that was a little bit weird because I was like, actually, I am showing up. I'm doing all these things. And that's when I tested my cortisol. It was around the time that we launched our cortisol test as well. And I found out that my cortisol was crazy imbalanced. So mine was too low in the morning and too high at night. And it was just this like cycle of this isn't working. And so I made some of those adjustments that we were talking about earlier, where I changed when I was working out. I tried to get in more outside time, more walking, less intense cardio. I started supplementing to really support my body with those adaptogens, with the drink mixes that I've been talking about, and really focusing on sleep. And with that, plus everything else, is really when I started to see the scale move like pretty significantly. And it's still something where I'm doing today, where I'm always paying attention to my cortisol as I think about my like health and weight loss journey.
Wow. I'm like, I like want to give you a round of applause. That's so incredible. And I love what you said about the mindset shift, because I think that that is a big key component that we as women tend to overlook a lot of times. Do you... I get, and we didn't get to talk about that this much this time, but do you mind sharing a little bit too, just about how you feel like your physical health impacts your mental health and vice versa? Because I know we talked about some about how the alcohol can affect that, but maybe how you feel like you've shown up for yourself in both ways postpartum.
It's 100% linked for me. If I don't work out, if I don't get my walks in, I am a moody, irritable, like pain in the butt at home. If I do get that in and I'm paying attention to my nutrition, one, I feel like I'm showing up for myself, which as a mom, that's so important to have that feeling, especially with, as I had my second, it's like, I need to feel like I'm showing up for myself or else I'm getting lost in my like motherhood, and that's going to drive me insane. And so I feel like I'm showing up for myself, and you're just a happier person when you're exercising. You can get out that stress. You can deal with like the challenges. You can think through problems a lot better. And so I really think it's massively linked. And I would say like the long-term mindset is really important, but also I had a shift. This is more kind of late 20s, early 30s, where I knew how linked physical and mental health was. And I actually started working out for stress management more than how I looked. And that helps me show up every single day. Because if I'm working out to have better mental health, I know that I need that, versus if I'm like, oh, I want to lose 5 pounds for this vacation. It's really easy to be like, I don't care about losing 5 pounds for this vacation anymore. But it's really hard to be like, I don't care about not being stressed, or I don't care about having poor mental health, because of course you care about not being stressed and having poor mental health. And so it gives that like opportunity for consistency a lot better if you think about it for that purpose versus for the visual appearance.
Yes, I so agree with that. And I will even sometimes go up to my trainer on the day, maybe let's say the first couple of days of my period, or if I'm just really exhausted and drained, and I'll tell them, hey, I just want to let you know I'm here today for the mental health benefits, not so much for physical. So that way they know that when I'm not crushing it on the burpees, like maybe I normally am, or if I'm not picking up the heaviest weight that they know and I know I can do, it's because I really am just showing up there for my mental health more than anything else. And I think that is just, it has been a light bulb moment for me in my health and wellness journey.
Exactly. And sometimes I say like, screw this cortisol balance. Like I need to go like sweat a lot and do like a very long, high intensity cardio workout, because that's what's going to get me out of my head and clear the stress that I need cleared right then. And so I will go do that. And so just like thinking about it that way is so helpful.
That actually reminds me of a podcast guest that I had on, Ashley Turker. I can link back to her episode as well, but she talked about how sometimes she will literally just run and run and run until she can't run anymore. And she was like, it's almost like I just break, like I'm weeping and running. And she was like, it's almost like this whole body, like it's spiritual health, it's physical health, it's mental health. I'm praying, I'm crying, I'm running. And it's like, your body just feels like freed after that. And I was like, dang, girl, you're going to have to catch me on the Lakeshore Trail getting that going then too to try it out. But anyway, Thank you for sharing that. What would you, I ask every podcast this as a wrap up question, but how would you say that you reset?
Really good question. It depends how much time I have. I try to do my big reset day. I try to do one of these every quarter, so for a year. And I will take a day in the middle of the week and do like a think day. And part of that think day is working out. Sometimes it's going to a spa, having like a massage. Sometimes it's going on a long walk. But I try to get away from my phone, pause work issues, have time where I'm by myself to really think, process, and like go forward. And that really helps create clarity at home. It creates clarity at work, and it allows my body for like a rest and digest day as well.
That's so good. I love how different everyone's answer is. So that I'm like, I need to do that. I need to schedule that on the calendar for myself this summer for sure coming up. Well, I am so thankful that you came on and shared your wealth of knowledge on all things, especially cortisol, Rachel. I felt like we really got to dive deep into some of those tangibles there. But will you tell everybody a little bit about where they can find you online, where they can find your podcast, where they can find the supplements you talked about? And then I'll link it all in the show notes for them below as well.
Yeah, definitely. The company is Routine, and you can find us at routine_co. You can find us on our website or on Amazon. And for me, my Instagram is Rachel Soap, SOP Sanders. And you can find most of the things that I talk about on my Instagram. And podcast is Smart Health, and you can find that wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It was great to be on.
It was amazing. All right, girls. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed getting to chat and just to deep dive a little bit more on some of the hormonal things that I know you guys are really passionate about learning about right now. What a joy to get to have Rachel on and share her journey of her postpartum weight loss, learning about cortisol, all these things. So let me challenge you today to end with doing that breathing routine and also to put a reset day on your calendar to make sure that you're getting that mental clarity and that rest and digest day like she talked about. And if you found this podcast useful, please do me a huge favor, subscribe, rate and review, screenshot it, share it to your stories, and tag me and Rachel. We'd love to share as well and cheer you on in your health journey. Have a blessed Tuesday. Y'all, welcome back to the Marriage Corner. And today, Eric has brought us a unique topic. I can't wait to see where this goes. Y'all buckle up.
So the thing that I was thinking about today and I wanted to discuss with you, and I had a couple influences that made me think about this, but I wanted to discuss parents' sixth senses. Now, that's kind of difficult to say, parents' sixth senses. So an extra sense, kind of like the spidey sense that that parents have. And one of the things I love to watch on Instagram or like little reels is these, videos of parents at the last minute just saving their kids from falling or just, any kind of thing that may hurt them. One of my favorites is this dad. He sees his toddler beginning to roll back and fall off this little step, and he flings this pillow, and it's perfect timing. The pillow slides perfectly underneath where the kid is going to fall. He rolls onto the pillow, and the mom's reaction, you can see her in the video, is just, oh my gosh, this was unbelievable. And there's ones of dads grabbing kids by the back of their t-shirt before they run off, a step or things of that nature. So that was one of the inspirations for this podcast. But also, too, I was just thinking the other day, I was thinking about my mom, and I know Heather's talked about this. She passed away about a little over 1 year ago, but she always had this sense. And whenever I was away from home in college or when we were newly married, she could always sense just over the phone if there was something bothering me or, just she could tell if there was something weighing on my mind. And she would always be, we'd have our conversations and then she'd be like, hey, are you okay? Like, I can kind of sense that, you seem tired or just, a little off. And for a lot of years, I didn't really appreciate that. But now being a parent of a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, I definitely understand those feelings and those sensations. And actually just today, I was talking with my dad on the phone, and he kind of did the exact same thing, which is really weird because I was just thinking about my mom a few days before that. And I felt like I was completely normal on our conversation on the phone. We were talking, he was supposed to come up this weekend from Tampa. The hurricane just came through, and thankfully, everyone in my family that lives down there is safe, and their homes were are completely fine. I know a lot of other people weren't as fortunate, so we've been praying for them. But I thought we were just having a normal conversation. We were discussing logistics of if he's still able to come or not. And at the end, I did tell him, I'm like, yeah, work's just been really busy recently. He's like, and he was just said, hey, I can kind of sense, I've heard, that work's been really exhausting. You've had a lot on your plate. And I feel like he definitely had that sixth sense. And I said, yeah, a little out of balance right now, but just him like realizing that, and just in my mind, I was completely fine, but just those small, I guess, maybe it's an energy or things of that nature that he could just tell. And I would be interested, Heather, are there any extra senses or a sixth sense that you really recognize being a parent?
Yeah, I mean, 100% yes. I definitely think that there have been many a times, especially when the boys were younger, where it's like, they were about to roll off a piece of furniture or roll off this side or the other, and you just like jump right at the right moment and save them. I definitely think we had many moments like that with our boys when they were, little bitties. But now I definitely feel like with Leighton, especially, like I can tell when he is just something's on his mind, like something's just not right. And you can almost tell in like the look in his eyes or in the way that he talks. And then also with Finn, I feel like a lot of times Finn is our kid that's going to be like, are you tired? Nope. Even though he hadn't slept, he's sick. Like if Finn says he's tired, like something's really wrong. If he's willing to admit that, he will lie through his teeth, night and day about whether he's tired or not. But I feel like as a mom, I do just have that sixth sense that I know when he's tired, even when he doesn't. So I feel like those are little small examples, but I think that that's really cool that your dad recognized that in you and that it made you feel seen, which I don't think that kids have the ability to feel seen in that way. They might feel annoyed, like you kind of referenced earlier. And what would you say, high school and college, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was more so in high school and college. I don't know if it's necessarily about being seen. It's just, I just find it interesting that parents have this innate ability to really just sense how their children are or how, other people, close friends are, and how we can really try to be in tune with that sense, and how can we basically correct our behavior to encourage others or just help people out and recognize that they may be going through something, and sometimes just a matter of listening. A lot of times with Leighton, it's not the best approach to be like, hey buddy, what's wrong? He gets even more defensive, and just, kind of let him talk and, listen to him and just tell him like, hey, if you want to talk about anything, your mom and I are here to talk, and keep those open lines of communication. But if you don't have that sense, you don't have that ability to really try and draw things out or just be open to their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of made me think, how do you feel like your mom and or dad could have made you, or what did they do that made you as a high schooler or junior higher even want to open up and talk to them? Do you have any good advice for parents that are having kids that are a little bit older, and that, because it's hard with boys, I feel like when they get older sometimes to make them talk?
Well, I mean, honestly, I didn't want to open up, and a lot of times I still don't want to open up, but just knowing that they were there and that there was that outlet to communicate when I'm ready. And we talk about this a lot in our marriage as well, too, that I'm more of an internal processor, so that I always tell you, I'm like, hey, like, yeah, I really want to talk about these things, but I want to talk about them when I'm ready. I want to think through it and things of that nature. Whereas you're an external processor, so you're always talking through how you're feeling and all these things. So I think it's the natural inclination of people that are more external processors. They want the person that they're talking to also be an external processor, when that's not always the case. And for someone that's an internal processor, sometimes, I want people to have more time to think about what they want to say. So it's about dynamics. It's about emotional intelligence, all these different things. But going back to what you were talking about, with my parents, like I said, it was just a matter recognizing that they had that sense that they were there, they were present, and they were always there if I needed them to talk or need help with anything. So that's ultimately what I want to do for our kids, is let them know that we're always there to talk about anything. We're not going to judge them. We're the ones that if you make mistakes, that's okay, and we want them to learn from those mistakes and just be a safe space for them.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of leading into another story I'll try to keep it short, but long story short, we were at Fall Festival this past week and Leighton and Finn obviously were playing all these games. And one of them got fairly frustrated that he wasn't able to, ring the Coke bottle or whatever at the ring toss. And he got really frustrated because his brother was getting it and he wasn't, and he was borderline in tears. And so, of course, when I said, "Hey, buddy, it's okay. We often make mistakes, but, I want you to try it again." "No, I don't want to try it again." And I was like, well, you know how we always talk about in our daily affirmations that we say on the way to the car, like, I'm a good sport. I said, part of being a good sport is being willing to fail, but also being willing to try again. And so I said, if you try again, we'll get you an extra, reward or whatever it was there that he wanted at the Fall Festival. And so he did, muster up the nerves to go and do it again. And sure enough, he got the ring toss and he won his Coke and he was so excited. But I think it's just those little moments where as parents, it does take that extra step to, put your phone down, be more present, to let them know that you're willing to get into the hard with them and not afraid of their emotions, which as a parent can definitely be very challenging sometimes. And I think that I struggle with it more often than I don't. So I actually was like, Eric, I'm so excited to tell you this because I actually did it.
Yeah, I felt like I loved hearing that story. I loved that Leighton was able to overcome and that you were able to talk with him and encourage him. And so, yeah, I just encourage everybody to keep those open lines of communication, always be honest with your children as well, too. I think that's a big part, be honest with them about how you're feeling and let them know that you can make mistakes as well, too. And then that's okay to make mistakes, and we learn from those mistakes. So I feel like we touched on a lot of different topics during this segment, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you guys, if you get a chance, go down to the bottom of the show and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We would love to hear what you'd like to hear next time on the Marriage Corner. And we're so thankful for the opportunity to get to just chat with you guys and chat with each other here on this platform. And we just hope you have a beautiful day. And we will see you next Tuesday on the Marriage Corner. Okay, friend, that's a wrap on this week's episode. If you're not already following me on Instagram, make sure to screenshot this episode, share it to your stories, and tag @Healthy by Heather Brown so I can connect with you in my DMs. It truly brings me so much joy to see how these episodes impact you. Make sure to subscribe so we can see you back here next Tuesday for our weekly show. In case you don't know, your downloads, ratings, and reviews are the actual lifeblood of this podcast, and it helps spread the word to your friends and family. So please hit the download button on this episode and leave a 5-star rating if you super loved it. And if we're really BFFs, you'll spread the happy and text this podcast link to someone who needs to hear it today for some encouragement. Scroll down to the show notes on this episode to see any and all links mentioned, freebies to fuel your health goals, prayer-related episodes, and the 7-day free trial of my exclusive membership where I personally coach and cheer you on in whole health. While you're there, make sure to check out my Amazon storefront with healthy snacks, my favorite look for less workout outfits, and books and devotionals that challenge me in my faith. If you ever need to find my Amazon storefront, just Google Healthy by Heather Brown Amazon and it will come up. Have a great day, Girl Gang.